Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. I'm sharing my screen with you, so you guys can see my screen. And here are our participants. Okay, so there is a slight change in the plan. Yesterday, somebody asked me. Um, so basically, this session, Node.js, was originally scheduled for only professionals, and those professionals who already have the knowledge of Node.js, the HTML and other things, but not for the people who are very much fresher. But then yesterday, somebody asked me if I can introduce some basic concept in Node.js as well. So the content of the course has been a little bit changed. It is basically added. We are starting with a basic introduction about Node.js and how web server works, etc. So probably those who are already here working already in the Node.js, probably they'll find a couple of things repeated, and probably they know that. But I am just going through the basic level so the other developers or students from the educational background will understand what exactly in the future we are going to conduct. I just need 1 second, hold on. Okay, thank you. So to start with Node.js, uh, okay. First, we need to understand exactly how the web server works. Those who were there in the PHP session, they have seen Apache web server and how XAMPP we have used, etc. And there is a slight change in the architecture and when you're using Node.js. So basically, often people ask me why Node.js and why not PHP, or what is the core difference between PHP, Java, and every other server-side language other than Node.js. So traditionally, when you type some URL in your browser, for example, I go to my Chrome and I type any website, for example, www.rediff.com. When I type this URL, my machine becomes client. Uh, Typically, it is a web browser, but you can also call this URL from mobile, from kiosk devices. There are various client available in the world, but typically, most of the time, it is a web browser. Either it is coming from laptop or coming from mobile. This web server, sorry, this web browser basically sends HTTP request. If it is a PHP, then it sends the HTTP request to your page. So the moment I say rediff.com, by default, it is calling index.html. And whether it is index.html or index.php, it goes that request. And there is always a web server. A server is like a physical component which simply serves the pages, which accepts the request and which sends the data. This is a very simple functionality of any web server. Typically, the type of web server we use is IIS, that is Internet Information Server, or Apache, or Tomcat for Java, or there are IBM. There are plenty of web servers out there. Nginx is there. So web server is not a programming language. Web server is simple component which accepts the request, add some logic like security, authentication, optimization, load balancing, etc. And then it simply return HTML response to the same client web browser who have requested. So when I type rediff.com, exactly on the same client browser, I receive the HTML for index.html or index.php, whatever page I'm requesting. And then if it is not the HTML request, if it is a PHP or if it is Java or if it is Cold Fusion or any other than HTML, this request is being asked to process by the appropriate software by web server. For example, if you're requesting for index.php, then this index.php, which web server don't understand, web server don't know anything about PHP. web server simply hand over that request to a third-party software. And in our case, the third-party software is PHP. That's why yesterday in XAMPP control panel, we had to start Apache separately, which is our web server, PHP separately. Without PHP, if you only run Apache and call PHP, Apache don't know how to process PHP file, because in that case, PHP is unavailable. So in order to run your PHP file, you must have additional software installed on your server, that is usually PHP. So PHP is one example. Tomorrow, if you have Python or you have Java, or a very popular option is .NET, then those software must be installed, and we call it as a runtime. So those people who knows a little bit about .NET, they know that .NET runtime environment, or JRE and JVM, must be installed on the machine. So IIS for .NET, or Apache for PHP, or Tomcat for Java or JDE. So these kind of web server software combinations are out there. Most famous is Apache because it not only serves PHP but also Perl, HTML, and other few more languages. Web server is completely separate than your language or runtime, and that runtime basically compile what is in request. If you have written in PHP echo, if you have written session, if you have written MySQL I underscore query, blah, 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 that entire magic happens in this PHP part. And finally, this PHP software outputs the HTML to web server. Then this web server understands that it does have a HTML, and that HTML is being sent back to the client. It's very simple. And that is how a typical traditional client, web server, and runtime. And then beyond runtime, there is also database. So this PHP have another here, this box is not here, but there is another box which is called as database, where your data is being stored. So this is a basic architecture about a traditional web server. If anybody have any question, they can ask right now, or else I'll ask to the next slide. Is it understood? Anybody have any question on this basic architecture? Good. So in Node.js, this architecture is completely changed. What and how? In this architecture, if a web server receives 2 requests, then web server initialize 2 instances of PHP in the background. If web server receives 100 requests concurrently at a time, then those requests in the PHP, multiple instances get created, and this concept is loosely called as multi-threading concept. What it means by that, a PHP or .NET or Java is a multi-threaded application. They can create multi-instances on the server. That means they can utilize maximum RAM, maximum CPU cores, maximum threads available out there on the single web server. So typically when you type rediff.com in your browser, it imagine as a 80 port. 80 port is not visible ever, but when you type something like this, 80 port automatically attached to your request, and it gets sent to your web server. This is just the default behavior. It's not the case for every website. And that 80 port can handle multiple instances of your PHP software using the same web server. But in Node.js, this is not the case. Let's see how it goes in Node.js. So in Node.js, a client typically sends a request similar to what here we can see. A HTTP request has been sent, and a web server with Node.js. That means there is no separate Node.js and there is no separate web server. A Node.js basically comes with a small lightweight web server itself. So when you install Node.js, you also get a lightweight web server. It actually parses the request. if there is a database required, then it goes to database, or that it instantly respond in whatever format you request. Now it's written as a JSON, but it's not necessarily a JSON. The primary difference between these two slides is, if you read here, it is a single threaded application. That means Node.js can be only one instance for every single request. So if your website receives 100 concurrent, or when I say concurrent, maybe it is a little misinterpreted, but if imagine you have 100 requests at a time, sharp at a time on the right millisecond, all of those 100 requests receives on a single port, and only one instance, non-blocking instance of Node.js will respond to the client. Now, one might ask, if PHP can be duplicate themselves and utilize full strength of server, what's the primary use of Node? The primary architecture in Node.js that we can allocate one instance per port. And then we can introduce here a very standard web server like Apache or Nginx or Tomcat, and it's called as reverse proxy. Those who don't understand what it is, they can just write it down. Sometime later we will discuss in more detail what is reverse proxy is. But in production, we always create multiple Node.js instances in the backend, which is a single threaded instances, and those act as a load balancer itself. So it's an architectural difference, but it is important primarily for students particularly, that in Node.js, in a typical standard Node.js file, a simple, without any special arrangement, there is no web server involved. Node.js is itself a lightweight web server and also a processor which binds itself to a port, and then it processes the request and respond it. Another special thing about Node.js is JavaScript is the sole language used until Node.js on client side. So if you're writing HTML, just like how we wrote some code yesterday for PHP, on the client side, if you remember, we have written some styling like bold and strong, some styling CSS was written. That is a client side scripting. Similar, you can also write JavaScript, which always runs on client machine on the user's browser. But since Node.js, you can also utilize the same JavaScript as a language on the server side. So this actually creates a new stack which is called as mean stack. Mean stack means it is MongoDB, which is a database. I'll come again on the MongoDB later. Express, which is the architecture. Angular, which is a front-end technology, and Node as a backend technology. In this session, we are only going to see Node and little bit about Mongo and Express, not Angular, definitely. So Mongo, Express, and Node is what we are going to learn in upcoming sessions for Node.js. So this become a brand new stack for a couple of years now, and there are various developers out there who are very much good knowledge and expertise in this stack. Now one might ask, what is a stack? For the PHP we learned yesterday, and it is known as LAMP stack. LAMP stack is simply Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. Because Linux is operating system by default bound to PHP, that's why it says Linux. So either it is LAMP stack or WAMP stack. WAMP only replaces Linux with Windows, rest is same. Apache is required. Without Apache, you cannot serve PHP. MySQL is a database and PHP is your language. So there are two architecture primarily which are very famous in developer community. One is min stack, another one is LAMP stack. So this is a basic theory. I thought I should provide it to the fresher people as a basics. Those who are already developers, they already know this. Let's move to the installation part. So you can always download Node directly from Node website. Simply say Node download, and you will have the website nodejs.org. In Node.js, you will always find two types of Node.js instance. One is LTS, long-term support, and one is a current, latest feature. So what is basic difference between LTS and current? The current is the latest and greatest. Whatever node community is developing, as soon as it comes in production, they attach here. LTS is something which is little proven, a little old version, but it is already proven. And this version, node community is committed to support for longer time. So in production, we always use LTS because we know that if we are using a specific LTS version, for example, here latest LTS version is 12.16.2, then we are assured that this 12.16.2 is maintained and supported by the community for a longer time. In the future, if node come up with some breakthrough or breaking changes, that will not affect my product. So that's why LTS is always there. For Windows, you can download MSI, zip, package, whatever you want, not for Windows, but for Mac OS package. For Linux, you can always download binaries or you can install from Linux installers like yum and apt. For Mac, it is always a package file. For Windows, we will click this. You can download either 64-bit version or 32-bit version. And once it is downloaded, it is a normal software. You can just click, and it will get installed. Now, Node do not have any interface. If you go here and you say Node, you can see Node.js, but it is basically a shell script. There is no visual appearance of Node.js. You can always go to your command prompt and type node command after installation, of course, and hit, and it will bring to the node prompt. So if I exit here or quit or control C is the exit, I can always see node version. And my current node version, which is installed, is 10.16.0, a little old than the latest one, but I'm okay with it because I don't have any production versions installed on this laptop. That's why I'm happy to keep this version. So node is the basic requirement in order to run your node code, nothing else. On the top of that, you can use your editor. Like yesterday for PHP, I was using Dreamweaver. For Node and other Angular and Python, I always use Atom editor. Optionally, you can always go for Microsoft Code, but I think I'm comfortable with Atom. But that doesn't mean that you have to use Atom only. In Atom, you can add existing folder, for example, on F drive. Now remember, since we are not using any web server here, there is no XAMPP, no htdocs, or no any specific rule on folder where you can store your node files. You can store anywhere. For example, on F drive, I have created a folder, node tutorials, and under that I have created T1 folder, and then I have installed and created a couple of files. You can create such folder anywhere. Now, since I have created this node tutorial here, I can always go to Atom, and there is an option add project folder. Now, as soon as you say add project folder, it will ask you which folder you want to add. And I can always say node tutorial, and I can select this folder. As soon as I click this select folder, I will not do that because that folder is already selected. As soon as you say select folder, you will see that folder right here, which is expandable and collapsible, simple thing. And in empty folder, so let's create one more folder here. So that way, either you can create from here or you can create from here, it doesn't matter. So I'm creating from here another folder, T2. Now this is a very empty folder. And here, let's create one simple first basic file for Node.js. So I'm clicking right mouse button. I'm saying new file, and I can give any name to this file, like index.js. But remember, the extension should be JS, not PHP. Here, by default, as a developer, we always use server.js. That way we know that this JavaScript file is written for Node.js and not for client-side script. Now in Node.js, I can start writing command right from here. And once I write the command, I can execute this file from command prompt. So I can go on F drive, I'll go to node tutorial, I can go to T2, and I have server.js. In order to run this file, you need to type a command node server.js. That's it, nothing else. But since we have not written anything, there is no point to run this command. Now, if you remember, when I was giving a reference over here in the second slide, I was saying that since there is no web server, a dedicated separate web server by default on Node.js, and it is a single thread, we always attach one Node.js to one specific port. Now, port is basically a gateway to your domain name, which you can utilize to 4200 or any port you can give, any logical port, whatever number it suits you. As I was saying before, by default in Apache it uses 80 port, but here there is no restriction. So you can create 100 ports and you can attach those 100 ports to a 100 different or same Node.js file. But the point of interest is here, you have to attach a port to your node file, and you have to create a web server before you write a single echo or single response dot write or any print command or any HTML. And to write that, you have to first create a HTTP server. So you have to call HTTP as a server. Now, as soon as you create HTTP, this is ready to be configured to create a lightweight web server within Node.js. And all you need to do is just create a server just like this. Since this syntax is not by heart, I need to copy some of the code from here, but I believe you can understand this. In order to save the time and not to create a lot of errors, we can simply create multiple servers over here. So one server I have created here, http.create server. So what I'll do here, http.create server, and in the bracket, I can write a callback function. Upgrade now to remove, okay. I have no idea, but this never occurred to me. I believe in 10 minutes we'll all be get disconnected, but stay online. After 10 minutes, as soon as this call get dropped, I will restart this meeting for another, I think 30 minutes or so. And please join that meeting again. I am not aware about this, so we have to do this. Okay. So now, as soon as you say create a server, you have to provide a request and response parameters. Remember in the slide, I said a client sends a request, the web server of Node.js process it, and it sends the data back as a response. So two keywords are important, request and response. So those two keywords are important here, REQ and RES. Now this is optional. You can complete this as a request and response. You can also write your name here, doesn't matter. But whatever parameter you will write here have to be used while you are coding and creating logic in the future. Now this will create a server, but it will not yet bind it to any port. So here you have to attach this HTTP server to a port. Just to attach a listen command, and you can give a port. For example, right now I want to give it a port like let's say 1000, and that's it. So 1000 is a port I am attaching to a basic lightweight by default web server of Node.js. I have not written any echo in PHP, for example, any logic over here. It simply creates a web server, nothing else. And once this is done, I can simply print res, that is a response, dot end, welcome to Node.js. And that's how the first echo in PHP, for example, because many people have attended yesterday's session, you can write a simple HTML here using res, that is the response, dot end, and in the bracket some content over here. So let me check if I have made any mistake. Look like I have not, but we'll simply run this code. So in the folder, I am writing my command node and the file name server.js, and I'll hit enter. As soon as you hit enter, you need to wait till you get a confirmation from node that the server is started and your program is ready to serve. Meanwhile, somebody like to draw on my screen every day, I think. I have no idea who is this, but good. Okay, look like it is already started. Let's confirm if it is started. So how do we access it? So it's very simple. By default, it is localhost colon your port. Your port is 1000. I'll type 1000 and I hit, and awesome. It says welcome to Node.js. Now I was waiting here to be appear something, but it never did, because in order to do that, I have to write console.write, if again I'm not wrong, or console.log. Okay, console.log, and web server is started. Now we have made some modification here. If you go here and refresh, it will not appear. Or if I make some modification here, new modifications, and I save this, just like how we did yesterday in PHP, I save this, I come here and I refresh, but I cannot see my modifications. Why? Because in order to reflect your each modification, you need to make sure you restart node server. So you have to hit Control C, that will stop your server, and then restart your server like nodeserve.js. Now as soon as you hit this, I'm expecting a console log here or here. Okay, fine. So console log, okay, awesome. Web server is started, is already there. So you can see the log is also here, plus my new modifications are also here. So this is a very simple, stupid, basic version of Node.js. There is nothing special, nothing concrete, or nothing modern. This was the basic idea of Node.js when it was introduced for the first time almost a decade ago. So is it the right way to develop production Node.js applications? The answer is no. This is not the correct way. This is not the modern way to develop Node.js applications. Because this way, developers' life is very complicated. Because in order to write a simple line, I have to stop this server every time. There is a lot of code involved. We have no idea how to connect with database, etc., etc., etc. They have created a brand new framework which handles the basic requirements or basic functionality of web development or web service development, and that framework is known as Express. So we have to install Express framework. If you go and simply find Express framework, you can always find expressjs.com. Express is one of the kind framework written for Node.js in Node.js, but Express is not the only framework. There are many frameworks out there in the market which you can utilize. But frankly speaking, I and my team never go beyond Express. We always use Express for production Node.js examples or product or projects. So if you go here, you will always see the Express details. You can find the API references. You can find the guide. You can, if you are not sure how to browse guide or API reference, you can simply start with getting started, because you need to install it first. And then you can write a hello world. So all the documentation is there. You don't need me or anybody else to teach you how to write code in Express. But anyways, we are going to perform that in our sessions because this is the primary part of the session, to use Express. Now, in order to resume on Express, for those people who are here from student background or very new to Node.js community, they must know how to install the third-party packages in Node.js. Because Express is a third party. Express is not by default product. of Node.js. Node.js is separate. Express is a separate module. There are hundreds of thousands separate modules out there which supports Node.js, but those modules are not part of Node.js. So how do we do that? For example, if I am playing a game, I have cheat code, I have different type of plugins, and I can install it, but those plugins never shipped with a default game. Similarly, in Node.js, those libraries are not shipped. You have to install it. And in order to manage those packages, Node.js offer a package manager called as Node Package Manager, or NPM. So NPM is a package manager by using which you can always install the third-party framework, third-party libraries you want. Remember, when you installed Node.js, NPM by default ships with Node.js. So in the, I'm clicking Control C. So in the shell, if you type NPM, you can see its version and some information. That means this command is recognizable and you can always use its options. Now, in order to start NPM, you have to initialize NPM repository. And NPM repository is nothing but a simple JSON file in which all of your third-party softwares get listed. So in order to do that, you have to write a very simple command, npm init. As soon as you hit that, it will ask you a couple of questions. The very first question is, I hope this is very much visible to everybody. Let me break this. My shell messed up. I'll clean it. Okay. So I'm saying npm init. As soon as I say npm init, it will give some information and couple of inputs it will ask you. Do you have any package name? I would say yeah, com.tutorial.node.js. Now this package name is optional. You can type any package name here. If you don't want to type, it will take your folder name, that is T2, and we can hit enter. What is the default version? Default version always starts with 1.0, but if you want to start your software with 2.0, something like that, you can always type this. Okay, so far I think we are good to start. Can somebody confirm if I'm audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. So I'm sharing my screen again. I think we only have again 30 minutes or so, 30 or whatever minutes Zoom app allows us. So we'll continue from from where we left. So I can offer a description as a basic tutorial, but these all are optional thing. The entry point is server.js, test command I don't want to give. I don't want to provide any keywords. Mayur Patel is author, license is ISC, and it gives me a JSON output of the answers I have given, and I would say yes, I'm comfortable with. Now, as soon as you configure your npm package manager, and if you write dir command, you will find a new file has been created, package.json. This package.json is basically your npm repository where all of your software which we want get listed. So if I go here, I can see my package.json with the basic information. Now we want to install Express in our project. The command to install Express is npm install package name. If you write this command, just what I have selected, it will download Express and install it in your project. But it will not save that entry in your package.json. That's why always include --save. So this entry will be made here in package.json. So let's run this command, npm install express --save. As soon as you hit this, it will start downloading Express file from Express server automatically. It will download it, it will configure it, and it will create a folder here, node modules. And if you expand node modules, you will able to see Express files right over here. So many folders, so many files, but you don't want to go inside it. And as soon as your installation is done, which is here, if you open, you will find there is a new entry dependency express 4.17.1 in your package.json. So tomorrow, if you install 100 other packages in your node project, all of those packages will be listed here comma separately, and the other information about your project is listed here. So this is about node and npm. Now, once we have installed Express, let's see how we can integrate Express in our code. It's very easy. I'm closing this file. All you need to do is, okay, you can type require Express. And from Express, you can create a new application. That's how you can create. So all I did is I imported a library. Remember, when I type a variable name and require, this is nothing but importing a library. That's how you guys import library in Java, like java.sql.star, or in .NET, I think it's in, sorry, in PHP, it is include, or I think in C# also it is import, something like that. So this is the exact way in Node.js to import the libraries. So first we have imported a HTTP library, which is by default required for Node. Then we have imported Express library, and that Express library comes in an Express variable. You can write any name like SDF. SDF is also fine, but just to make your code readable, we are saying Express is a variable name, and from this Express we are creating our application. Now there is a shortcut for these two lines. Usually developers who are professional in Node.js, they do this way, where app is equal to require express, and right next to it, they also initialize it. This is initialization equivalent to this. So either write in one single line or write it in two lines, doesn't matter. Once you have created your app, once you have HTTP, you are going to tell your Node.js that do not create HTTP yourself. Let Express handle creating the web server. So one web server we have created on port 1000, and one more web server we are creating on new port, but using Express. How to do that? It's very simple. Use server.listen, and in this case app.listen, and provide a port number here. Now this time I'm providing port 2000, and just simply provide a function and write whatever you want to write. Now this is a console.log, and it is saying now listening to Express. This console.log will print in shell as soon as your Express web server gets started on port 2000. Remember, we have not written any HTML output yet. It's a very simple web server using Express on port 2000. So let's try this so far. I don't want to go into much complicated coding initially and then try, but let's try to run this. So I'm going to say node server.js. As soon as I click, it will first go and create one by default or basic HTTP server on port number 1000. And then using Express, it will try to create one more web server or instance of Node on port number 2000. As soon as it creates 2000, it will say now listening to Express. So let's go to the browser and type localhost 2000. So it says site can't be reached because my 2000 port is not yet started. I think I have made some mistake. Let me check. Yes, I have not told my Express to communicate with HTTP and then create the server. So in order to do that, you must create a server like this. So using HTTP, create a server for Express, and this server supposed to be listen on port number 2000. Apologies for the coding mistake, but I think it's also a good way to learn the logic behind creating the server in Node. So I have to stop this and I have to rerun my code. Now this is saying now listening to Express. As soon as I hit, it is ready to listen on 2000. And when it was saying this can't be reached, I am reloading it. And now it's a different error message. So my 2000 is started responding, but it's saying cannot get slash. Now I'll come to here a little later, but this code will go again one by one. You don't need to necessarily create this default server. This is just for demonstration. So better I am commenting this. So you have created and imported HTTP basic library from Node.js. Then you have installed Express and imported Express. You have created an application out of Express. And using HTTP library, you have created a brand new server, but you are let Express handle that web server or Node web server in a new variable called as server. Now on a configuration, you are saying server.listen, a new port number, and you have given a callback function, and you simply output a console.log. That's it. It's that simple. So until now, anybody have any question? So chat is saying no, sir. Awesome. So I'm assuming that this is the response for everybody. If anybody do have any question, please type it in chat. Now, as soon as you created a basic web server, this is a basic setup in Node.js. Now from here, you need to create functionality within your port, and we call it as routes. So you need to create a route for home or index or anything you want. There is no extension. You just need to go there and create your own routes. And in order to create routes, all you need to do is use this server and create two types of routes. One is a get, one is a post. For the students who don't know what is get and what is post, please Google it on W3C School. It is very easy to understand what is the difference between get and post. I believe in your diploma in engineering, you already have covered what is get and what is post. So you can always use the app. Sorry, my mistake. Previously I have said server, but it is not server, but you have to use your express variable to create a new route. So you can always use app.get. This get specifies that you are writing a get type of request, and you can provide what type of route you want. Right now, I don't want to provide any name. I'll just keep it simple. That is the default route, and you can write function over here. Now remember, when you are giving a callback function here, non-blocking callback function, you have to provide two responses every time, request and response. And in Express, it is very simple to output something. It is rest.send welcome to Express. That's it. And since there is a slash, you have to stop this and restart it again. Shraddha, I am not sure what you're saying. I think we don't need to create a server to recent versions. What do you mean by that? Shraddha, you can unmute and directly voice so everybody can also understand what you're saying.
So I'm trying along with you.
Okay.
So I did it without creating a server with the 1 second, with the HTTP object. Without the HTTP object, if you use the app object itself, like you did before, when you got the error that the site can't be reached, latest version allows it to use the app instead of the server object.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's very difficult for me to understand what you're saying. It's better if you take a screenshot of your current state of your code and share it with me later so I can understand what exactly you are trying to tell me right now. Is it okay with
Okay,
you?
sir. Yeah, okay.
Awesome. So let's resume on this one route we have created. So we have created one route with a default slash, and in the callback function we have a request response, and we have just simply printed this. I'm going here, and now this is that slash just on port 2000 because I have asked my express server to listen on 2000, and I'm simply say refresh, and it is there, welcome to express. Now let me create one more route for you. So let me clean my code a little bit. So I'm saying app.get. This time I'm saying home, and I'm writing one more route here. And this will simply say welcome to home. I think the spell is, this is much better. And I'll go here and I'll just try to type home. But it says cannot get slash home because I have not restarted my server. So I have to hit Control C and again go to node and server.js. And if I come here and if I refresh, it says welcome to home. So this becomes so irritated way of developing the code. Every time I make modification there, I have to come here, stop it, restart it, and then come here and refresh it. But there is a solution for this. Using HTTP is the best way because after that you should use SSL. That time you require HTTPS. Yeah, but even if using Express, you can always use HTTPS. It has nothing to do with Express for sure. I have another example in one of my projects where I'll show you how I have implemented HTTPS over there as well. So coming back to our original topic, there is a third-party software or third-party package from that library, and it's called as a NodeMon. NodeMon. If you install it, you don't need to restart this Node.js again and again and again. So let's Google it a little bit. Simply NodeMon, and you will find NodeMon is available on npmjs.com, which is basically a npm package library where you will see all of the packages available out there on Node.js thing. So either you can go here and find out the command to install it, or you can simply say exit npm install NodeMon. Now there is a slight difference between this command. There is a -g. -g stands for global. Once you install NodeMon, your entire operating system and its users and different projects will able to utilize NodeMon command. If you do not do that, your NodeMon command most probably will only restricted to your development environment only, nothing else. So what I'm going to do, I'll simply say npm install -g NodeMon. But NodeMon is already installed on my machine. Let's see what it responds. Okay, awesome. So it is basically removing my existing modules and upgrading my NodeMon because my NodeMon is pretty old now. So I'll wait for this. As soon as it is done, NodeMon has been installed to the latest package, that is 2.0.3. Now, if you want to test whether NodeMon is installed properly, simply say NodeMon and hit enter. And you will see NodeMon is recognized and it is listening. So I'll see stop. I'll clear my console. And now, instead of typing node server.js, all I need to do is NodeMon server.js. And you'll see the difference or the advantage of using NodeMon. I'll simply hit, and as soon as I hit, NodeMon starts giving me logs. It says server.js is starting. And now if I go to my localhost 2000 home, I refresh it, I can see the output. I'm going in my code and I'm making slight modification here, new changes, and I hit the page. As soon as I hit the page, I can come here and refresh it, and now I don't need to go here and stop it and start it again. It is automatically restarting as soon as I make modification in my file. So NodeMon is just one package. There are plenty of other packages out there. For example, a live reload is one package where you don't even need to refresh your browser. It also reload your browser as soon as you save here. So you can live reload npm, something like this, but we do not use live reload very often, but you can always use it. Live reload is there, reload is there, but node1 is sufficient for development purpose, whatever we have. So try to use it in your development environment. Now, next thing, we have created a server in Express. Now, our development environment and our web server environment is already set up. Now we can start writing actual web related stuff, that is logic, from here. So now I have created a new path or new route, app.get/home, and I simply say response.send, welcome to home changes. Now, what if I want to accept some parameter and show that parameter here from request? Because it is gate, I can always pass. I'm closing this window, so I can always put question mark and say full name is equal to ABC and see enter. Now I want to fetch this ABC and other parameter as well, and gender is equal to male. So there are three parameters we have included here in gate. First is full name, its value is ABC. Second parameter separated by ampersand is age, 36, and then gender is male. I want to access all of these three parameters here and print here. So it's very simple because it's express. You can say var full name is a local variable, and you would say request, because these all parameter always comes with request because it is incoming, response is outgoing. Always make sure you understand that these parameters will be part of first parameter request dot param, and the name of param is full name. The first parameter is full name. Similarly, I'm creating two more variable, age and gender, and I'm giving the exact parameter name and age. And just like yesterday, how we concatenated a multiple parameter in one go, I will concatenate res.send request params are, and here the concatenation parameter is always plus because it is JavaScript. You can say full name, age, and gender. Now remember, you have to comment this because once your response is being sent, you cannot resend another response. It will create a break in the loop of the request and response cycle. So always remember, you comment any other response.send and simply put only one response.send. Let's come here and hit this. Now here request parameters are ABC, that is my name. I can replace here my name, Mayur Patil. It comes here, 36, and male. So basically I can access all of my get parameters in request, and I can include those parameters with a final HTML in response. It is that simple. So in the future, probably today or tomorrow's or next call, we will definitely use app.post and how to access it. Yeah, it is good. So I think we have another developer, G Suryaraj. He's suggesting there is one more method. You can always use request.query.fullname as an optional thing, or simply request.fullname will also work. I believe request.param is the original method. Later on, it might deprecate it. I need to check, but this is only one way to do it. Another way, if I comment this, I can always access request.age or request.query.gender. So these, all of three types are valid. You can still get your parameter as it is. So let's see if it is right. Yeah, the second one is not received, that is request.age. Sorry, G Suryaraj, this is not working. So it is always good to use request.query.age or request.param, either or. So you have Mayur Patil, 36, and male. It's one and the same thing. So there are various alternate options you will always find on Node.js library or Node.js documents. You can go there, or you can go to Express documentation, and in Express documentation API references, you will always able to find these details, just like how I have shown you. We uses W3C school or PHP manual for PHP function. You can always find the Express functions over here. So this is basically, yeah, no problem. So this is basically all for getting some basic request. Anybody have any question? They can raise on the chat, or I will proceed on rendering a full-fledged HTML as a parameter. Any questions so far? Okay, look like there are no questions so far. I hope many people are following the same code on your machine as well, just how we learned that Shraddha Jaju is doing so. So let's move to how we can render an entire HTML page in Express. So for the people who were there yesterday in PHP session, if you remember, I have introduced a way where we actually open PHP scriptlet within HTML and then write your logic or mix your logic with PHP and HTML. Unlike that, in Node, you have to keep these things separate. So it's actually a good thing that you can create a separate HTML page and call it as a template. And that template can be read here and simply output it. So in order to do that, you have to create a blank HTML or a basic HTML file. So let's click T2 and say new file and write down, let's say home dot or about.html. Now remember, this about.html is on the same folder level where my server.js is, but this is not necessary. You can always create a folder and put all of your HTML inside. But as of now, for demonstration purpose, I'll simply keep about.html here, and here I'll write some basic HTML. In the head, I would say title is no tuts, and here in the body, and here in the h1 tag, welcome to Express templating system. Now, for the people who are going to use Atom or sometime later Microsoft Code, we always have a shortcut for tags. If you notice, I did not do something like this: open H1, close, and then close H1 again, and type something. If you have noticed, this is especially for students who are not very much familiar with the shortcuts. You can always type your tag name. For example, if I want to open a div and hit tab, as soon as you hit tab, your entire div opening, closing with class will be rendered. Any tag. For example, if you want a strong tag, if you hit strong and hit tab, it will convert it into HTML tag. So it's a good to know shortcut. So I have created a simple about.html in which it says welcome to Express template system, and that's it. No fancy item or no fancy HTML. It's a very simple thing. All we need to do is create a new path here, about. Request response, and usually what we do, response dot send some HTML. But right now our HTML is not here. We don't want to hardcode it. Our HTML is a HTML file, and to do that you need to use send file. So send file is a command instead of send, which sends the HTML file. But if you remember, there is a underscore underscore dir name. This basically gives a full path of your current folder. So we will just simply copy this command and compare with our traditional response.send. So we are telling Node that I don't have to send a specific HTML code here, but instead I have a file which needs to be sent, and the file is in the current folder, that is __ dir name, and plus on the about.html. Now one thing I want to specify here, if you have created a folder over here like this, templates, and if you have created this about.html in this template, then remember you have to specify the folder name here, something like that. It's very simple, easy to understand, but I think it is important to know. So I'll remove this folder. I don't want to keep my HTML file separately. I'll simply delete it. So now I have to comment this. I'm saving my file. I'm coming to my browser. And this time, okay, so we have a hard stop again in 10 minutes. Now this time it's very easy to say about, and as soon as I say about, it goes to Express, it finds out my route, and it reads the file HTML, and it in the same action or in the same command it also sends that. And if I now go to about.html and I say here h2 modifications, I save it, I simply refresh it. It also, so node 1 also applicable on the template files. So this is basically creating a dedicated HTML file in Node.js. Any questions so far? Okay, awesome. Now web services with Git. Now this session which I prepared initially was not for sure to develop websites, but definitely only for web services, because there is a concept called as micro web services or just microservices, and these micro web services or microservices become a very hot topic in developer community in recent years uh, in terms of scalability and performance. So the app developers or the web developer from front end, they always invoke the data from server using web service. So those days are gone where we actually write the server-side logic to render the entire HTML. No, those days are done. Now we write the front end in the SPA. SPA stands for single page application. Usually SPAs are written in React.js or AngularJS or Vue.js, or there are plenty of other frameworks out there. But those frameworks allows us to render a small version of JavaScript on client, and then that version of the website or mobile application simply calls the web service from server. And the web services basically transact the data. Usually the web services are transacted using JSON format. JSON is JavaScript Object Notation. Yesterday someone asked me in PHP if we can write a web service, and I have demonstrated one example from my production project. But similar kind of JSON web services can be developed in Node without any extra code or without any extra library. It's very easy and it's very simple. So I think we have 7 minutes. Good. Still we can go ahead. Okay. So I'm closing these pages. I'm creating here a new route, app.get user service, and I'm saying request and response. And this time I am creating a hard-coded object in Node. Instead of getting that data from database, I'm saying var user, and I am initializing this variable in Node.js right in the JSON format. So this is very much compatible. That's why I think Node.js is very much popular within developers, because Node.js is tightly integrated with JSON by default. So here I can say name is something, then age is something, then gender is male. So I'm just simply hard coding this data right now. This is known as my object in Node.js in the format of JSON. And you can simply say response.send user. That's it. No conversion of your string to JSON, no JSON parsing, nothing, nothing, nothing. And now if you just call this user service template, user service, why it is not there? I think I made some mistake. Let's see. Yeah, user service response user. Okay. Ah, my port is also 2000. Why? Okay.
Sir, user service slash before slash missing before user service.
Right. Interesting. So the slash was missing here, and because this slash was missing, this path was not recognizable. So if I simply refresh my page, you can see my output is in JSON. Now these kind of outputs are known as headless output. What does mean that mean? That it doesn't have usually by default any header. So if you view source it, you will still see the same JSON format, same JSON object. And this JSON object is what app developers or SPA developers usually required. So when you read a requirement in paper or in the LinkedIn that we need a Node.js web developer or web service developer, or we need a micro web service developer, that exact web services comply with this format. So if you know how to write these web services, I think you are good to known as a backend developer. So in order to qualify you as a backend developer, the basic eligibility or basic knowledge you must have how to write JSON based RESTful services. So this is a very plain, empty, blank service, doesn't have any authentication token or any headers or blah blah blah, which definitely we will see in the future. But that is how the basic web services are being created. Now I want to make it dynamic. We hardly have 3 minutes. So what I'll do here, I'll simply say request.query.name, request.query.h, request.query.gender. And here I'll pass those parameters. And you can see those parameters right here. That's basically how the web services are being created using Express without any special libraries in Node.js. I think on the web service part, I am good. There are two more packages or two more points, but I think we can perform these two topics in the next session of Node.js tomorrow. I'll post the schedule tomorrow. I have some meetings in the daytime. Let's see, but I'll try to keep this session in a late morning or early afternoon. If you can post your preference on the chat, that would be good. If you have any query, it is better if you post it on WhatsApp. Is there any quick question within 2 minutes I can resolve, I can answer? Okay, look like we are good to close today's session. If you have any question, please post it on WhatsApp. Thank you for today, and we will resume our session from point number 9 onwards. So this was scheduled for today. These are not the only thing. Those who don't have that list of items we are going to conduct, please check WhatsApp group, and you will find the entire point list which we are going to do. Thank you very much. Sir, reverse proxy. Yeah, reverse proxy will be explained at the last, because that is the concept where we are deploying our application in production. So Omkar, definitely we will cover this at last. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, awesome. Take care. Good night. Bye bye.